The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast NH. This is a podcast designed by writers for writers on the journey to being published. Joined Mandra Biscornet.
It was so healthy and nutritious.
Deborah Monk.
Can we open each podcast with a dance number?
Shelley Devlin.
It was so full of inspiration and sparkles.
Every Tuesday morning live on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to catch the podcast anytime on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. It's time to be inspired, feel empowered, and be well with the Writer's Block Podcast NH.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra.
I'm Debbie.
And I'm Shelley. Thank you for joining us here at the Writer's Block, where our mission is to inspire, empower, and to help people be well. We are streaming live on Facebook from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, so be sure to check us out there. And today on our show, we have Lisa Tenner, an authority on book writing and publishing. So welcome, Lisa. Thank you for coming on so early for us. Lisa is the winner of the Silver Stevie Award for Coach Mentor of the Year. She guides experts, entrepreneurs, and visionaries to joyfully write and publish their books. Lisa blogs for the Business Journal and Thrive Global, serves on the faculty of Harvard Medical School's publishing course, and teaches award-winning book writing courses. And we are so happy to have you on today. So we're going to get started with some questions.
All right, who's going first?
We call that in the industry a pregnant pause.
Yes.
Pause.
Sorry, it's great to be here.
Oh, gosh.
I'm mesmerized by your words.
Well, Lisa, I noticed that you use the title book coach versus writing coach. So let's start there and tell us a little bit about why you use that term and what the difference is. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny because it wasn't like immediately what I envisioned. I had my first child and published my first book, and then I was sort of realizing that the topic of the book was not something I wanted to actually be doing much around. It was Ultimate Guide to Transforming Anger, and the men would come to their workshops like this, because their wives sent them. It wasn't that much fun. And so I was in a yoga class one day, and it was like I got this download as I was asking, what's next? And so at first I called myself a creativity coach because I got this idea an inspiration to teach people the steps that I used in co-writing this book and, to get in the zone to write. But I thought, this can apply for anybody, creative artists, photographers. And so I started doing these classes I originally called Magic for Your Muse or Meet Your Muse. And kind of what happened was, like, the universe told me, this is who you're supposed to work with. It started to narrow down to writers. And then people started coming to me for help with their book proposals. They really didn't just want help writing, but they wanted to write a book, and often they wanted to traditionally publish. So I work with both traditionally and self-published, and a lot of my self-published authors have won wonderful awards and been in the New York Times and all kinds of great things. So I do help with both types of publishing, but it just sort of became, I think, what it needed to be, that I was a book person more than a broader writing person. And a lot of teachers in my family, I think, like, teaching is just a natural for me. So I teach a lot of courses and really love, I guess I'm an Aries, so I love those beginning phases. I love to help people at the very beginning get clear on their book concept and really brainstorm and get creative together to make it, the best idea it can possibly be and the right structure that's going to really work to the benefit of the work, and then also really helping people connect with what their readers need and want. So I help through the whole process, but I do have to say I love those beginnings. It's so fun and creative and juicy.
And how long have you been doing this, Lisa?
That is a good question. I would say at least, at least 13 years, but I think maybe even a little bit more than that if you include the creativity coaching.
And how have you found the self-publishing ability to affect your business?
I probably over time I have more and more people who know they want to self-publish. So I think that, it's become so much more viable and acceptable an option. And I think also, people do often love to have complete control, get the book out quicker. And some people just, are pretty clear at the beginning. They don't want to do all this platform building to get what a publisher usually wants. They want the book to do that. They want to use the book in that way and just get it out there, supporting whatever their work in the world is. So, I would say, there's just more of it. It probably has grown the field. I also, when I started, there weren't a lot of people doing what I'm doing. And now, I think people have seen it as, wow, this is a lucrative market. And so you see a lot of people who are authors then getting into this field, which is a good thing in some ways, because people have so many choices and can find somebody who really specializes in what they're looking for, or somebody who, meets their budget needs or whatever. So I think that's the good side of it. The not as good side is sometimes there are people out there teaching this work who maybe, aren't
very good. I'll say it for you. You're trying to be kind, but I'll just say it. They suck.
I think budget. She mentioned budget. Lisa, you mentioned budget, and I think budget is. I perused through your website, and you have so many avenues from your courses that were like $29 or something, and then all the way up to your coaching. So there was like this giant range, and your website was amazing because it really, it was a lot of information, but it was categorized and clear. It was nice. So the budget can go from like
29.
endless, right? Well, does it depend on the services?
Well, I suppose, Lisa, will you take endless checks?
I was going to say, hopefully not endless for my clients, right? But yeah, I really try to work with people to find something that works for them. And I also, part of my business is referrals. So I think because I've been blogging so long and the website does attract a lot of people, people will contact me for children's books or fiction, and things that are really outside of what I do, or even just blogging help. So I do have some very carefully selected writers and editors, and ghostwriters even, consultants that I recommend. So yeah, and so if somebody comes in with a smaller budget, there's often someone I can send them to. Although over the years, the people that I've been relying on, as they get more and more expertise, their prices have gone up too. So I've just been thinking you need to find a few more people who are really great, but not as expensive for those people who contact me and have a small budget. But, as I think people often assume that it, it's an inexpensive service, but there's a lot to editing. There's a lot to coaching somebody on writing a book. A book is a big endeavor, and there's a lot of words to read and edit. Mm-hmm. So, I think to get that kind of level, often it is important to invest. And one of the things I really like to encourage authors to do is think about a sustainable model. You don't want to just be throwing money and time into all the services, including publicity later on, but have a way that the book is going to bring in income so that you can continue to enjoy all these activities without it putting a pressure on you financially. So a lot of authors come to me without a business plan. I really encourage them, create a business plan.
So say more about that, a business plan for your book where getting the book published isn't the end.
Yes. Yeah. So think about, what are the activities that might bring in money? It could be speaking, it could be coaching, it could be webinars that you do online. But it really, one of the things I think of it as like one of these, picture that drawing with the a cycle, right, where you've got the arrows that continue to go around. And I think that when you have a business model that gets you in front of people, whether it's virtual or in person, then you sell more books. And then when you sell more books, that also brings in new clients or customers to whatever the business is. So, I don't want to take away from the creative and artistic aspects of writing a book. And sometimes when you're writing, some people really need to just focus on the writing, and that's fine, and just on the book. So, whatever you need to do. But then I think it is really, really helpful to have a business plan that also sustains itself.
Right. Speaking of your website, one of the programs that I saw on there was Writing in the Zone. And because we are on the Writer's Block podcast, I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about how you help your clients with that writer's block.
Yeah, I'd love to. And Debbie's actually taken that class some time ago in Wakefield, Rhode Island.
I'm still in the zone.
And you're still in the zone.
But it's really, like, in some ways the core offering, even though it's not just focused on books, because and more focused on writing at large, because that's really how I came to this work of teaching, is these 5 steps for what I originally called Meet Your Muse or Magic for Your Muse, and now call Writing in the Zone. Because at the time people were like, what's a muse? I think now that term is more in use. But I focus on 5 steps. And the first is, so now I've created this acronym, WRITE, and I still haven't found the best W for starting. So I say wipe your mind clear or walk into the garden. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But the first step I used to call enter the gate, because it's really about entering this sacred space and letting your muse and your creative source know, okay, now it's creativity time. Now it's time to connect with my inner muse. And so you do sort of wipe your psyche clear, wipe your mind clear to enter that space in a place that's really open, right? And not like with your shopping list and all these things going on in your mind. And then also it can be about
writing mindfulness,
space, not just within, but also without and in your workspace. So that's the first step. And if somebody can think of a better W, I will send them a free copy of Quick Start to Kickstarter book. I'm really, really a little stuck on that, speaking of blogs.
We're on it.
So, great. I had a feeling. So R is read your intention and goals. So when I work with people on a book, I always have them write a vision statement about what the book's going to do for them and their readers and for the world. And you can read that vision statement every time you start to write, and it will get you into that space of passion, inspiration, reminding you why you're writing. If it doesn't, you might want to even address whether you need to rewrite your vision statement. And then there's also sort of the goals for the day, like I'm going to work on finishing chapter 7 or something. So that's often helpful too, to have that structure of like, this is what I want to work on, and then being open to maybe it'll change. And there's third step. So we have WR is invite your muse. And I think of the muse as your creative source. Some people experience the muse inwardly, and some people experience more as coming from somewhere else. And it doesn't really matter. I think it's all the same thing. It's just sort of a matter of the way we perceive that really powerful connection with our creativity. Invite your muse. And then T, tune in and write. So once you've done all those other steps, it should be easy to just connect. And then the third step, enjoy the gratitude, is so important because, we don't always get what we wanted when we wrote. Maybe we wrote half of what we wanted to, or maybe it just didn't come out in a way that we feel is very creative, or we just stared at a blank page. But if you focus on gratitude that you took the time and that you showed up and that something came or didn't, or trusting that even the not writing was a fallow period you needed, then it sets you up for the next time, right? Gratitude is such a powerful key to unlocking
I love
desires
your
and
light
your
bulb,
dreams.
Deb. I love when Deb has a light bulb goes off above her head. Like, don't keep beating yourself up, Deb. You just actually have to enjoy the gratitude.
And I was
I
thinking
can't get past number one, though.
the
Number
why?
one.
I know you're having
Wipe your
trouble
mind
with
clear.
that.
Are you kidding me? How does that happen?
Yeah,
How do we do that? How do I do that?
It's writing mindfulness like you do. You have to get in that.
No, and she's not saying she
space.
doesn't agree with it. She's saying,
No, I know.
how
She
do
doesn't
you
know how to do it.
Right.
Right.
But and maybe Lisa has some advice for her, but I just have to say, can you guys not see why I love her?
Oh, totally.
Yes.
And she's talking about, I mean, the
She's
word
talking
muse
about
right there.
muse.
As soon as she said muse, I'm
She
like,
was
this
like
is
your
why,
sister.
Debbie. Yes.
Exactly.
God.
Debbie's muse shows up in like the radio and
Oh, it
Costume.
shows
She always shows up in
costumes.
costume.
in
Costume.
Michael's
In Michael's craft store?
It shows up everywhere. But anyway,
So what advice would you give for Shelley to
Who's having a
wipe
lo-
this? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So Shelley, one of the things that you're speaking to is that I think wipe your mind clear is not like the best part of the acronym. So, but think of it maybe more as enter the gate, right? Like you're entering this sacred garden, this beautiful garden. That's your creative space, your inner creative space. And so you're leaving other things behind. It's like walking into this beautiful garden. There's roses to smell, and you can hear the birds singing, and
Lisa,
this waterfall.
Lisa, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you for a second because if you could see Shelley's space, you would want to. We all want to move in with her. She recently bought a lake house.
Shelley, come into the camera. I want to see you. Oh.
Yeah. So, and she has the most beautiful writing space of all of all
Well,
of
in
us.
two
Like
writing
Stephen
spaces, it's
King,
funny
probably.
because when I was at the cabin, I did talk about walking into the garden because I had a writer's block.
Right.
And I did walk into
it
the
didn't
literally.
work.
No, it did
Oh, it
because
did. Oh,
that's
it
when I
did.
came
Okay.
up with that suicide one that
Yes,
you love,
yes.
and I came up with the other, all those other ones.
All right, so then maybe
So
that
you
will
are
work.
fixed.
So I need to walk into the garden.
You're fixable.
There's
All
hope.
right, I'm fixable. Okay, I just need to do it.
And
So-
nature is so creative. Nature always is talking to us. So I think that's really helpful. A lot of times, if we come to the writing a little burnt out, it's going to be harder to connect. And so, I work with a lot of therapists, and I remember one guy coming to class. It was a virtual class, but he was on the call, and he said, I didn't get any writing done this week. And then at the end of the call, he said he was going to do the same thing he did the previous week, which was, wait, and on the weekend he'd do his writing. But he was really burnt out. So I did a little bit of, quick laser coaching with him and said, well, what recharges you? Because I think you're coming to the writing with nothing left to give. What recharges you? Is it nature? Is it music? And is it prayer? And I'm trying to remember what it was for him. I think it was music. So, think about what recharges you and give that to yourself before you come to the writing. Don't wait till you're burned out. And
Unless
I think that
writing
will
is what
help you.
recharges you.
No.
Well, then you're
writing.
stuck.
Sometimes no.
All right. So, Lisa, would you say that you help let's say someone has a book idea or they've started writing it, would you say that you help them more while they're creating the book and do you help them after the book, that once the book is done, the rest of the marketing of it, do you do that as well?
Yeah, a bit. And so, because I work with people on book proposals, some of that work is helping them, A, grow their platform so that it's what a publisher is looking for, and B, have a really fabulous promotion plan that builds on that platform that already exists.
Now, what is that P word that you speak of, platform? What exactly does that mean? I mean, I know I'm supposed to know.
You don't like it. That's why you don't.
I know I'm supposed to know, so I use it.
You know what it is. You just
I
don't. No.
All right, fine. Is it stupid Facebook followers and Instagram followers? Is that what your platform is? Or your
So
email list?
I would say that that's a piece of it, right? But your platform really is how you reach people now, and also the potential you have for reaching people. But certainly, as your book comes closer to publication, you don't want it to all be potential. You want to be building on the potential you have so that by the time the book comes out, you already have a lot in place. Whether that is a bunch of colleagues, like one of my clients wrote the book, Michaela Carson wrote the book, A Plant-Based Life. So she had all these connections through the plant-based community. she'd been the executive director of T. Colin Campbell's foundation, and so they offered a lot of classes. So she really knew like all the major players, I would say, in the plant-based community, and had worked with them. She had actually been the person to gather the recipes for the fork, silver knives. I don't know if for their cookbook, I think it was for their original book. And so for her, a lot of it was potential. It was all these relationships she had. But I said, that's not enough for a publisher. And she went out and created a website that like took a lot of research that was just coming out and kind of summarized it for people to know, okay, here's some of the research that's coming out. So, and then she offered some webinars. So that's how she started to reach more people. It could be through speaking. It could be it could be corporate training, might be. But, if you're writing fiction, it does take a little more creativity to figure out how am I going to reach people. And it might be through a hobby you have, and then we know which is also a hobby your protagonist has. It could be through organizations that are invested in your message. I know one of my clients, there's a Jewish organization, I can't remember what it's called, but they pick a few authors every year who then they send on a book tour. They fund the book tour. So it might be a way that you're, like, let's say you had a book about growing up Jewish in Brooklyn or something. So maybe that would be something you could tap into. Another client of mine wrote a book, a memoir about her Scottish mother. It's Deanne Radford, and the memoir is called Bless Your Little Cotton Socks. And it's about all these wonderful expressions, but I think also the quirky way her mother had of seeing the world. And so some of her promotion plan was about organizations that had to do with, like, organizations in the U.S., like I think the Royal Scottish Historical Society. I might have the name wrong, but something like that. Or tourist spots. She wrote about Troon, which is where she was from. So, some tourist council or even gift stores in Troon. So, like, thinking broadly about, what kinds of groups and people can you connect with and how.
All right. So you're a book coach. Is there such a thing as a marketing coach? Let's say you've worked with Lisa and you've got the best book ever. Let's say, who knows what you called it. Maybe Well-Behaved Woman Coming Undone. And let's say Lisa says, this is the best book I've ever read. What should that person do next?
Well, I just have to interject that it is such a wonderful book, and I had no idea how much I'd fall in love with it when you sent it. But I just so enjoyed it, and I enjoyed your humor and also the playful, quirky, magical realism in the book was so wonderful. So I thank you for writing
that.
it.
That's gratitude. Enjoy that right now.
I don't necessarily coach on fiction, but I love fiction. That's what I love to read. And so it's kind of helpful for me maybe that I don't coach on fiction, because then I can really just enjoy a book and not be analyzing it, right?
Right.
I can just enter the magic of it.
Yeah.
But, it's a great question for a book like that. I mean, you might think, okay, she does lose a baby. So, maybe they're contacting grief groups, right, at hospitals for mothers who've had a miscarriage. Or lost a baby. It could be, just women's groups, and then certainly connecting with book clubs. I think. I mean, it's such a woman's book. A book that a book group could laugh over, cry over, really enjoy.
And the addiction piece of it,
and so,
too. Like there's the substance abuse that is carried through the generational wounds. Like that would be another.
Yeah.
Platform,
right.
to
and how do
reach
you
out
find book clubs?
I would look online and see their meetups. They're definitely through Meetup you could find some.
Oh, is Meetup a
and
website?
then,
Meetup is a website.
Oh, Meetup's a website.
For many things, not just book clubs. There's
Okay.
all sorts of
Yeah.
things.
So if a fireman calls me and says, I want to meet up, he wants to talk about my book?
Yes, stop going on Tinder to promote your book.
No, it's not.
That's when they want to call you to have some coffee.
Exactly.
Dun, dun.
All right, so back to Lisa. A question I had for you is, speaking of just random men saying dating, when you go on a date, you can see someone, you can smell them, you can touch them, you can hear them, you can really get a sense of if you're a good fit. How do you find the editor who is a good fit for you?
That's a great question. So, first of all, obviously look at their website and read the testimonials. And you might even look at some of the books that they've worked on, based on those testimonials, or if they show the book covers. Are they editing in your genre and the type of book and voice that you have? And that's something to ask them about too. Like, well, you've edited books in this genre. What are some of the things you tend to see when you edit in this genre? What are some of the most common mistakes or things you help people with in this genre? And I think one of the things is just really trust in what you're picking up. If it's not feeling right and the person has all the great credentials, trust your gut, definitely. And sometimes it is a matter of trying it and seeing. So you might just, rather than sign up for 6 months, just have them edit a chapter and see how you liked how they work. And I'd really listen for, do they seem like somebody who is constructive or somebody who likes to feel like the expert, right? A person who likes to feel like the expert's got a lot of ego involved, and they could tear you down. I have had friends who've had an editor to actually, and I had a teacher back when I was in college that it took me a long time to come back to writing. And he didn't make anybody at MIT feel like they could write. He brought in somebody who wasn't even an MIT student, and basically we spent half the class on his work. So he had this protege who then went to the Iowa Writers Workshop afterwards, and his work was wonderful. But I think it's so important that a teacher or editor knows how to see what's there, right? See the potential in a work, and not just only look for
what needs to be fixed.
Is the genius like right there, obvious on the page?
Right.
Because I think a good teacher is going to bring out your genius, right? If you have that desire to write, you've got something in you, and a good teacher is going to bring that out. So the other thing is maybe to look for somebody who sees themselves, certainly there are many wonderful editors who just call themselves editors, but I think sometimes people who are teaching and call themselves a coach, might bring more to the table in terms of really this holistic approach. And it's not just, but I have to say, sometimes I get so lost in the weeds of things, once in a while. It's not often, but once a year I'll have somebody who might say like, tell me what was good about this. And I realized I didn't have enough of that in there, or wasn't clear, or I said it in the beginning, but I needed to reinforce it because I get so lost in, I got so lost in the weeds. So, anybody I think we all have to remind ourselves like that looking for the potential is always so important. And, what can we build on, not just what did we do wrong?
Right. Thank you, Lisa. We just have like a minute left. Is there any kind of final advice you want to leave us with? Just really trust in your desires, and I think writing can be very solitary. It can be challenging at times, and sometimes there's like challenging emotional territory that we cover when we write. So get the support you need, whether it's a writing buddy, somebody you go for a walk with after you've written, Yep.
Or a coach or editor, but get support. It's not something just to do all alone. Support's really helpful, and there's lots of free support in terms of friendship with other writers and programs like this. So everybody who's watching this is already doing some of that, right? By being part of your community. And I do have something on my website, if I can just share. It's the Inspired Author Support Kit. And so it'll help you create that vision statement for your writing, and also walk you through some lessons by email. And I think it's a really fun free course. So I invite people to come to lisatenner.com, and you can find that and hopefully enjoy it and get something from that practice.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Lisa.
so much.
Thank you.
So everybody
Thank
check
you.
out lisatenner.com, and we'll have that up on our Facebook page as well. Thank you all for listening and to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Please check us out at the Writer's Block NH Facebook and the Writer's Block Podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. May you be inspired, feel empowered, and be well.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.